This is the original podcast edition of The Guild of the Cowry Catchers by Abigail Hilton, now part of the complete Pirates of Wefrevane series. The books are available as audiobooks, ebooks, and paperbacks. This podcast originally aired from 2010 to 2014. Stick around after the story for commentary from me, the author, more than a decade later. Hi, this is Abby, and you are listening to the Guild of the Cowry Catchers podcast for November 11 of 2010. This is going to be a feedback episode followed by the outtakes for Book 2. I've had quite an impressive response so far. I'm actually... Excuse me, I'm not going to do a lot of audio editing on this, so if I have some false starts, they're just going to stay in because I would rather spend the time working on Book 3 than editing this extensively. I've had an impressive response to this. I'm actually recording this on Sunday, and I've gotten a lot of email. I've gotten stuff on Facebook. I've got a lot of activity in the forums, and that's all really good. It's really cool. I have posted in the banners section of my website, I posted some business cards. So if you want to share the book with people, it's just the front and backs of I say business cards. It's just a card to make people interested in the podcast. They're all different. They've got the different cover art on them. And you can just take some heavier weight paper, like, I don't know, 26 pound, 28 pound, 32 pound paper, and print them front and back. And they look really pretty in color, but they also look pretty cool in black and white. In fact, I intentionally put some of the black and white artwork on there. So if you want to print them in black and white, you can. And pass them around to people if you are having an itch to share the podcast, as some people seem to at the end of Book 2. So I'm just going to read some comments. I've gotten more than I can share here. If I don't read yours, don't feel bad. This is just a cross-section. I scooped up a bunch of different ones. People seem to want me to read their names. I was a little bit worried before to read people's names on the podcast because I didn't... If you sent me an email and... I assumed you didn't want to post it publicly on the forums, but some people just sent me an email because it was more convenient. So anyway, I'll say the first names or the computer handle of these people if they've got one. Bruce said on Facebook, "My heart broke in the last few minutes. The bitch must pay for this. My blood is boiling for hers. It is good despite the sadness. Recently, I got my wife listening, and she had caught up, but hadn't finished the last chapters. She looked at me weird as I was saying no, no, no aloud when I realized what had happened. It's so hard not to comment to her. Still, as I write this, it occurs to me that she might not be dead, she, meaning Thessalon, but perhaps taken for sacrifice, so she can die before his eyes. It gives me a little bit of hope, but curse you for such an excellent cliffhanger." Thank you, Bruce. I've had several people email me telling me that they're listening with their spouse or their significant other, and that's cool. It makes me happy to think of people discussing the story with their friends. And I do have similar situation. Well, for instance, I have a group of friends I usually hang out with on Friday nights, and one of them is listening to my podcast and is not current with the last couple of episodes. So I was talking to two of my other beta readers about the response to the podcast, and he's like, be careful, I haven't listened to the last few chapters yet." So I've had the same experience where you can't tell people what you're talking about. Internal Logic said on the forums, "Wow, Thursday is my hump day at work, so I always wait until Thursday night or Friday to listen to the podcast, a little reward for having made it. This episode was such a surprise. I had no idea what was going to happen, or that it was going to happen in this episode. I was expecting a leisurely chapter." Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Interestingly, I don't want to stop reading at all. I'm ready for what's coming next. I thought that the music was used very well at several points in the middle of the episode. Maybe I'll go back to listen again. there was one point where the music was slightly ahead or at odds with what was happening in that exact moment, and it caused a sense of uncomfortable expectation, which turned out to be completely warranted. Yeah, occasionally I do that. I realize if you do it too much, it's kind of a cheat. I'm guessing he's talking about the point where Gerard jumps up from the night's sleep and feels like he's missed something, that something important has happened and he wasn't there. That's happened to me before. Usually I think that happens to people because you knew in the back of your head that you should do something and you talked yourself out of it, or you convinced yourself something else was true and you kind of knew it wasn't so. And then you wake up or you realize a few hours later that you should have acted more quickly and you didn't. That's happened to me with sick animals before, where I knew before going to check on them that they were dead or that they were worse and that I should have responded differently more quickly. So I guess I pull that sensation from that sick in the pit of your stomach. I should have thought of this. I should have been a step ahead. I should have taken the tarp off the guinea pigs' cages. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling. Yeah, hopefully the music did what it was supposed to do instead of giving too big of a clue too early. He continues, yeah, I'd like to say I'm in the Gerard Goes Ballistic camp. Somebody somewhere is going to pay for this. People like Gerard don't really take this kind of thing very well. The image of Terminator's shiny metal skeleton doggedly crawling through the burning wreckage toward its target comes to mind. This moment feels like the whispering, breath-held silence right before the wave strikes. There's a prediction thread on my forums, and people post interesting things over there. If you would like to make predictions about what you think will happen, please feel free to come over there and post on that thread. You do need to be current with the podcast, or else you might get spoilers. But if you're listening to this episode, I hope you're current with the podcast, because obviously I am giving out spoilers left and right if you're not current with the end of book 2. But yeah, that thread is fun. And, if you say something that turns out to be prophetic, you can always come back and crow on the thread that you were correct, which several people were about this particular event in the story. He also said something earlier about that he didn't want to stop listening. That was in reference to something I said on the forums. Occasionally I will have beta readers who actually try to stop reading at this point in the story. They feel like it's too dark, it's too sad, it's depressing, and they won't say outright that they don't want to read anymore. They just will stop reading. Or they won't ask for the next book. And I have found that if they read even the first chapter of book 3, they're hooked again and they want to keep going, which is why I wanted the end of this book to dovetail with the next one. So I'm finding that most of the people listening to the podcast don't feel that way. Most people are anxious to know what comes next and don't want to stop reading. But if you do feel depressed or like the book is all dark and sad and it's just going to be depressing, please realize this is the lowest point in the story. This is the darkest point in the story. This and the next few chapters. And if you walked with me down into the darkness, please walk with me back up into the light. I really don't like the idea of people stopping reading here. It makes me sad to think that anybody would stop the story here. There are 3 more books. So anyway, yeah, please don't stop listening here. This is a terrible, terrible stopping place. Fenra on the forum said, I think Gerard is going to go numb for a long time. Once he's able to function again, he and Sylvia are going to make sure Morchella gets what she deserves. My dad is fond of saying the most dangerous person in the room is the one with nothing to lose. Morchella just created 2 very dangerous, very determined enemies. I'm kind of surprised she didn't think that through, actually. Maybe she's just too full of herself to think that anyone could take her down. I want to know what's going to happen to Alcere. Realistically, they need to get rid of him, maybe even kill him, now that he has been infected by the fishy bitch. I seriously doubt that Gerard will be able to shoot his own dog after what just happened. He's the only one left besides Silvio he's close to. And then she posted a link to a song by Mumford & Sons from the album Sigh No More, and the song is called Little Lion Man. It's an extremely appropriate song. It really fits the episode well. I hadn't heard it before, but if you haven't listened to it, it's a good song, and she linked it in the forums. I'll try to remember to link it in the show notes. This one is from Mark Simmons of the Burning Zeppelin Experience blog. And Mark has given me a really good review in the past and has linked my stuff before, and I did a guest post over there once. He says, "Oh man, are you trying to ruin my week? First, I won't spoil you on Who Died on Digger, a webcomic you should read, by the way. Of course I read Digger, and I didn't realize that you know who died because I hadn't read the current update, Mark." I saw that and I went, ah! And then I went running over to check the website, and it was who I thought he meant, and it was very sad. So he says, "I won't spoil you on who know you. Bleh. I won't spoil you on Who Died on Digger. And now, Thess, it's a bad day to be a character I like. I better go check the Return of the King and make sure Sam is still alive." But seriously, that was beautiful. I won't lie. I hope Gerard gets to piss on Marcella's grave. I'm certain that oh, never mind. So he's certain he's spelling the name wrong. In fact, he's not spelling the name wrong. But it was still beautiful, inevitable, and sad. Anyway, I didn't want to write to bitch and moan about Thess's untimely demise. Okay, he talks about the Silvio short story. A bunch of people weighed in on the Silvio story, which, by the way, is doing very well. I have made 6 cents per word on it, which is Asimov's rate, which is awesome and amazing. I'm astonished. Lots more people have said things about it. When I put up something else, probably around January or February, I will do a post-mortem report on that story, and I'll read more feedback specifically on it and tell you exactly how it did and make some more comments on it. But I'll try to. I'm not going to tell you things people are saying right now because I feel like the jury isn't completely in. But I am getting a lot more people saying that they like the full cast version and that they would prefer full cast version. So that's interesting. Those people came in kind of late. I first said all the people who said I want a solo read. And then then I had a whole bunch of people writing in saying we prefer the full cast version. But anyway, Mark liked the Silvio story. And then he says he has a recommendation, a whole patron's room. Like you said in the cathedral model metaphor, what if there were a page or a cluster of pages that only patrons could access, and you could get to be a patron by buying your way in? Patrons could post in their own special message board, download patron-specific content, and so on. A patrons page, with access only to registered users, could create a lot of room for neat content. This is an interesting idea. I've had several people recommend it to me. I've had other people recommend the PayPal scheduled donation model where you sign up and it takes $5 a month out of your account automatically if you, subscribe is the word I'm looking for. The PayPal subscriber thing. And then those people would be patrons and would get access to special parts of the website. And I think it's a good idea. I don't think I'm ready for that yet. I don't think I have enough specialized content to make that worth it to people. And I don't think I can guarantee boutique content at a regular enough rate to be satisfying for people who are just there for specialized content. Also, I feel like I'm just starting to get more of my audience engaged. I'm getting more activity on my forums. I'm getting more people who want to interact with me online. More people talking about the podcast to their friends. That's all good, and I want that. That's a sign of a healthy, active audience. I don't want at this point to dilute my forums or to dilute the online activity by diverting it to an invisible, exclusive place. That would be a bad thing. I want all of that activity visible and in public and in places where everybody can access it. I'm also well aware that my target audience definitely includes college students, and college students don't have a lot of money. But college students will proselytize your work if you give them half a chance, and they will share it with people, and they will grow up and have jobs and buy your books. So I'm not anxious to shut a large portion of my content away in some exclusive place that's patrons only, because I think that will kill the little bit of buzz that I have created. But it is an interesting idea. It may be a good thing for me to do a little ways down the road. It may be something that would work in my next book or the book after that. I don't know. But for right now, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're all saying. But I don't think my site is ready for that. I really don't. He says, and finally, another recommendation question: have you considered allowing patrons to make requests, issue challenges, earn inclusion for fictionalized versions of themselves and their friends in your work? As a writer, I know exactly how hard that can be to pull off, but it's the kind of thing that patrons might enjoy. I know I'd get a kick out of a story humanizing a much reviled species of shelt whom I think are particularly cool, like alligator shelts from Prophet, or the Hunty, or a thinly veiled reference to the burning Zeppelin experience. Just my thoughts. Can't wait for book 3. Yeah, this is another thing that multiple people have written me about, the possibility of having names included, or the idea of essentially commissioning me to write stories about particular characters or particular situations. As far as challenges or commissioned type work goes, my muse doesn't really sing that way. The extent to which I am able to do that is pretty much demonstrated over on the Prophet feed, where I ran contests, and the winner of the contest got to name a character, and I would write a short story about that character. They didn't get to give me any specifications. They didn't get to tell me what the character would do or what time period in the character's life it would be about or anything else. I don't write that way. But I could manage the write me a story about this character, tell me something interesting from their life. I'm not sure that letting people name characters for me to write stories about will actually produce the best stories. The ones simmering in the back of my head tend to be more original than what people are going to come up with for me to write. But anyway, I understand what you're saying. It's a neat idea. The names inclusion thing, that's another thing that I have to be really careful with, because if you do it too much, you start to sound like a corporation. But yeah, I'll think about that. Maybe. You're not the only person that's asked about that kind of thing. As far as characters that appear to be reviled or disliked, I too like to turn things on their head and write stories involving characters that have previously been kind of sidelined, or species of characters that have been kind of sidelined. A swamp fawn is one of the major characters in Walk Upon High. He's actually quite a fun character in Walk Upon High. There's a story that I want to write that happens at the end of Cowry Catchers, but not to any of those characters, in a different part of the world to a different set of characters. Excuse me, a different part of Wefravain and a different set of characters that involves a Zed as a main character and an Ocelon, which those are not main characters in Cowry Catchers. And Hunty, I'm not sure I've really reviled Hunty. They're not. I don't have a main character that's a Hunty so far, but they actually get to do a number of fairly interesting things in this book. And I won't spoil that for you further. Let's see. Next email. This one is from a listener called Tanja, and she says, I wanted to mention that I really like how you portrayed Thessalin's character. I'm visually impaired and must say that your description of the world through her eyes I deem extremely accurate. I have some vision, but do often rely on my ears and other senses to orient me. Her powers of singing and making music are cool because the appropriate harp music because of the appropriate harp music and singing you add to the soundscape. It makes the image of Thessaland much clearer. I can't wait for the next episode. Keep up the great work. That's really neat. This is the second listener that's told me that they're visually impaired and that they enjoy the podcast, and that's cool. I didn't set out to make Cowry Catchers a politically correct inclusion of all. I wrote a story. I wrote a good story. That's what I did. I didn't say, I'm going to have this many handicapped characters. I'm going to have this many gay characters. I'm going to have this many characters that have skin that is not white. I wrote a good story, and I found that different kinds of characters presented themselves, and some of them are handicapped, and I think that's really cool that appealed to people that are listening to the podcast and have some of the same handicaps, or not even handicaps, differences. Thessaland does not function in the world like a handicapped person. She functions in the world like a person with a different set of skills. And some of you are going to think this is a spoiler, but it's not really intended to be. I know there's people out there like, maybe she's still alive. We didn't see her body. This is not a cheat. This episode is not a cheat. Tess is dead. She was one of the hardest characters I ever had to kill, actually. And I toyed for a while with ways to try not to kill her. My beta readers who had read Walk Upon High knew that Gerard had lost a wife. So they knew from the moment she stepped on stage that she was not going to make it through the book. And so there was kind of this sense of sadness that surrounded her from their point of view that it's interesting, was not shared by my current crop of listeners who had not read Walk Upon High. But yeah, she's probably my favorite character that I ever had to kill. And for a while, I tried to figure out some way to replot the story so that she wouldn't have to die. But her death and the events surrounding it are what drive the plot for the rest of the book. And I wanted her to be truly likable and three-dimensional and not just a plot point. I actually developed a completely alternative version of the story in which the scene on the pier where Silvio has killed the prisoners or has assisted Morcella in torturing the prisoners and is very upset about it, and he and Gerard go out at Moon Festival, and Basil and Silvio make out, and Gerard goes and gets himself knocked down by Gwaine, and then they both leave, and they walk back towards the Fang and have this very honest conversation on the docks. And then Gerard asks Silvio whether he would be willing to go with he and Thess in the Mercat sailing. And Silvio says yes. That point in the story is the place where the plot, stands on a knife edge, and it could go either way. Alcera comes flying up right at that moment and tells them that one of the sacrifices has been stolen, and Silvio is recalled to his duty and goes back to the temple. But if Alcera had come up a moment later, it would have all been different, because in that moment, disoriented because of what has happened to him in the dungeons, Silvio would have gone with them. And if they had run away to the lawless lands, the entire story would be completely different. And I kind of developed this alternate history in my mind of how I could write a completely different book with these characters. But it wasn't the story I set out to write. It was a fun story, but not nearly as interesting, and I had an awful lot of really good scenes planned for the book that I intended to write. So every once in a while, I toy with the idea of writing the alternate history of my own world. But yeah, Thess is a cool character. She was hard to kill. Okay, so this email was actually one of the sweeter emails I have received. She says, I am a big fan of the world of Panamindorah. I am an over-the-road trucker and spend many hours driving down many highways. The work itself is pretty interesting. She's talking about her work. And I get to see this beautiful country and meet some interesting people. I want to thank you for all the work and effort you put into making the Panamindorah books. I cannot tell you how many hours your stories have kept me company and helped me to stay awake and stay focused while letting a small part of my mind wander into other magical realms. In many ways, it is hard for me to tell you how wonderful your stories have been for both myself and my wife partner. We drive as a team, and not only do we like to listen to your work, we also spend time occasionally talking about the stories or the characters. And yes, I am a big fan of Silvio's, and I see the small part of him that might be redeemable. Speaking of Silvio, I am very much looking forward to purchasing the side story and listening to it. I listened to your recent podcast and really appreciate how much you are willing to share with your audience. I think you gave us a little insight into the woman behind the magic. Your explanation of what you do and how you do it, as well as why you choose to do free podcasts, and dedication to and decided to try charging for the story, aka the cathedral model, was both fascinating and insightful. I appreciated your candor about how you feel regarding criticism you received from the one listener, as well as your response to his or her feedback. I think the prices you chose for the short story were beyond reasonable, and in truth, what you have given me and your other listeners is truly priceless. I do have one question. Podiobooks.com features a link to make a donation to a Podiobook author. I would like to make a donation to you and some other authors who I frequently listen to and enjoy. However, I wanted to be sure that at least part of the donation really gets to you. I have no issue helping Podiobooks defray their costs, but I do want to be sure an author such as yourself receives a reasonable amount from any donation. Thank you for taking the time to read this email, and also for all the time, effort, and imagination you put into your stories. I am very excited to hear the next installment of Cowry Catchers. Regards, Sherry. That was a very sweet email. It made me happy. Yes, Podiobooks gives us 75% of anything that you donate, and that does reach us. Evo Terra is a wonderful person, and I get a tremendous amount of traffic directed at me from Podiobooks. So I do not begrudge them the 25% they take for their support. They do an excellent job. I don't direct people to that donate button very often because I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the donation model, but yes, it exists. If you donate over at Podiobooks, I will get 75% of what you donate. And thank you to people that have. I don't get a lot of money from there, but we do get quarterly donations sent to us. Last quarter it was about $30. Because there's such a lag between when people donate and when I get it, and because I don't have any names attached to it, I sometimes forget to mention it, but I do want to say thank you because several people did donate over there, and if you donated over there, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, everyone who sent me letters and emails and Facebooks and everyone else who will this week. I'm astonished sometimes at the things that people say and the amount of interest they express. Thank you for your iTunes reviews. Thank you for your donations. Thank you for buying the Silvio story. I really appreciate all your support. I have one more thing for you this week in addition to the outtakes. I have the cover art for Book 2. And it is beautiful. It is the watercolor version of the picture of Thessalim with the Pegasus. And it really is a completely different piece of art as watercolor. The things I like about it are totally different. It's soft and bright, and you can see the sunset reflected on the Pegasus wings. And I will post both the unaltered original piece of artwork and also the beautiful lettered cover. The picture is by Raw Cloutier. The lettering and cover design is Jeff McDowell, and I will post those with this episode. And now, what you've been waiting for, the outtakes from Book 2. I hope you are as amused by them as I was. Thanks for listening.
Alrighty then. Cowry Catchers. Part 2.
Cowry as in the seashell. Catchers is in Shtotitam Dielish.
Ah, thank you for clearing that up. He says no one means no one. Should I do that voice?
I don't think she'll use that tape.
Before he left, however, Silvio cornered him on the quarterdeck. Silvio cornered him on the quarterdeck. Before he left, however, Silvio cornered him on the quarterdeck. He found Silvio on the quarterdeck. I cannot say that word. As Gerard had suspected, he'd been following the water sprite, well out of arrow range, of course. Nim? He'd opened the hatch to the grate that communicated. Nim?
As has been stated, the red and gray seem to have lived on... Damn, I forgot that one. Okay.
My asthma's acting up. It's all the insulation in here that is giving me a quiet environment. Continued Basil. Open throat, insert frog.
Chapter 6. Sea fight. You mean how far does my spirit of self-preservation extend? Let's just say that betraying Marshella would not be an act of self-preservation. You know what? It's Marcella, isn't it? Son of a bitch. The entrance is here. It means there's no subject... That one sucked. Let's do that again. Nice, Abby. Nice. Let's get some spiders going on up in this motherfucker.
The game lodge on Major Minor is famously neutral ground. The game lodge on Major Minor is At the most basic level, the Shelts and animals who worship wyverns, worship wyverns. Well, hello, Babwa. I'm here to tell you about why I worship wyverns. Namely, via the Temple Sea Witch and Sea Watch.
Where is Arendelle? Where is Arendelle? Where is Arendelle? Where is Arendelle? Ugh, freaking cat's taking a dump.
Okay, this should sound better. I just realized that I had the settings in the wrong place, so you were getting some pretty bad quality there. So you can take a deep breath now, Abby. These are all going to sound a little different. And my cat has finished pinching a loaf at this point, so here are these lines again. Trying to trace Trying to trace Gwain's probable movements over the last few years.
Silvio's boy servant. I always hoped I could be molested by Norm Sherman, and now's my chance. Right, but how old we're talking about the character. Wrong. Oh, don't let her know that. Remember, she doesn't like spelling.
Some of that stuff has really got to go. Blood and sweet stains. Sweat stains, you probably meant, Abby. Blood and sweat stains. Yuck. Sweet sweat stains.
Silvio and Basil were up on the quarterdeck. I cannot say that word. Quarterdeck. Silvio and Basil were up on the quarterdeck. How I hate that word.
Malau has excellent tailors. We're going shopping. Queer eye for the straight fox. I tried once. Sorry. Excuse me. I burped once. We're so cute and fluffy. 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 I could say those lines. I could just say those lines all day. We're so cute and frickin' fluffy. We're so cute and fluffy. We're so cute and fluffy.
But curiosity won out. Cat. In what way? He doesn't snap so much. Ah, and he doesn't have nightmares. I see. Nim. Arton reddened. Nim, shut up! Shut up! Arton reddened. Ah! Bribed the cat.
You won't find any with good detail. The Maysians regard them as a national secret. Maysian baby. He did some freelancing, too. He was successful is such a hard... successful is such a hard word to say sometimes. Oh, it's me, Gerard. It's probably more me than you usually see at that. I will get my claws back. Just you give me a good night's sleep, young man. It's going to kill me when I have to kill you. I love that line. That's my favorite line.
Can't do that with a low voice. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I sound like an owl now. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh, yeah, it must be late.
Xavier.
Hey, that ain't funny, man.
Xavier and Gazumel.
Hey, my cousin's a Gazumel. You watch your...
How do you say that? Is it Xavier, Zeeds, and Gazumele, right?
Yes.
Nouns, and Selkias. And Cowry catchers.
Catcher.
How do you say this one? Pegasus? I've never seen that before. Is that a made-up animal?
Pegasus.
Pegasus? Yes. Oh, that makes sense.
Pegasus, zebra, and gazelle. Several kinds of wildcat. Diving spiders.
Barking spiders.
That ain't funny, man. My Aunt Tootie was killed by a barking spider. I was trying to over-enunciate for some irritating...
Gamekeepers are well known to be very verbose, and so it's good that you went that way. Good call.
Well, thank you. You're not mocking me by any chance, are you?
Oh, no.
Barking spider, where?
Silvio has a hard time believing anyone would want to be around him just for his company. He's always searching for a I can speak early.
You heard his majesty. Go divert yourselves, but be back at the ship by nightfall. Farrell, be so good as to escort Thessalon to the ship and help her get her harp. I suspect she will want it. Your name is pronounced Farrell. My apologies. My officers technically consist of basil, parsley, and thyme. Oh, I meant to ask, are you going to Scarborough Fair? I was thinking about it, but I haven't a thing to wear. That goes for the rest of you as well. These Schultz are not your friends. At best, they'll rob you. At worst, you'll never find your body. You'll never find your own body. That's how bad it'll be, people. Gwaine Meja. Where did you get those cufflinks? Gwaine Meja. Yeah, I got a package here for one Gwaine Meja. All right, Mr. Meja, gonna need you to sign here on the dotted line, and then I'm gonna need you to freaking die. You poison my ass, will ya? Sylvie gonna cut a bitch. Gwaine Meja. You're even more beautiful in person. Gwaine Meja. No? Oh, sorry about that.
He gasped. He gasped. He gasped. His heart was gasped. I can't say that word. He gasped. He gasped. Gasped.
Oh man, a pitiful mew. Come on, Abby. Oh God. You're gonna have a blast with this. Oh God, now you want unhappy sounds? Come on. Here we go. Ram it. Taxes. Jimmy Fallon. Help me. Dead baby. Hell. Is it in yet? Unhappy sound. Pitiful mew. Jimmy Fallon. UEL. End times. Cataclysms. Freaking apocalypse. Monday. Jimmy Fallon. Genocide. Jimmy Fallon.
Is this still the same guy?
Nope.
No.
This is a sailor, not a very educated person. There's a part you were born to play.
Not very educated. That makes me want to do some kind of bad British accent.
You know, I didn't hear a lot of British accents in her story.
Yeah.
And I won't say it suffers because of it, but we all need British accents in our lives.
Yes.
Even Abby.
I smell Krishnards.
Oh, that was me.
Sorry, getting ahead of myself.
I had a chili dog before.
One of the hunty?
Gave an excited yip.
What is a hunty? Is it some kind of creature?
I'm sure I don't know.
Should I do some kind of a weird voice then? I smell Krishnards.
Well, it's hard to tell.
I'm a hunty. What is a hunty? Is that like someone who is being hunted? Not a hunter, but a hunty? I don't think so, for some reason.
I smell Krishnards.
Sorry, I was speaking over
Yes, you were, damn it. You ruined it. You've ruined everything.
I smell Krishnards. It's because Rish had a burrito earlier.
All right, there you go. Let me know if you need any more pathetic mews.
And I'm back. This is 2025 Abby coming to you with some thoughts on this episode. This was interesting. I had forgotten completely saying everything I said in this afterbook chatter. We are now almost 15 years later from me saying those things, and some of the things I said were wrong. And I'm not going to tell you which things, or I'm not going to tell you all of which things. Past Abby lies sometimes. The business cards I made with the artwork, if I can, I will hunt those down and include them just for fun with the episode on Patreon. I know it's in the intro and outro, but you guys are probably all skipping that at this point. Don't forget that you can see the artwork for all of these episodes on Patreon. The episodes are free at the same time that they drop in this feed. They do drop a week early for the $3 donors, but that's where all of the artwork is. Lots of interesting stuff here. So November 2010, and you can hear me spitballing on here how I could possibly have some kind of subscription for the podcast, and people had given me ideas, and I just wasn't sure I could make any of them work. Patreon didn't exist. Nothing like Patreon or any of its copycat services had come into being at that point. It was quite hard to get paid for anything in small amounts. That was the kind of the problem of the time. Nobody could figure out how to just get $1 a month. And the best solution most people were coming up with was PayPal, scheduled donations, PayPal subscriptions. PayPal actually had a separate service for micropayments that made it financially feasible to collect just like $1 or $2. But it was really challenging because, yeah, Patreon and services like that later solved the problem had not come into existence. This was also right after I had written the first short story in this world, which was Professionals. I think I misremembered earlier that it was Skydance, but it wasn't. It was Professionals. That's a 2,000-word Silvio short story about Silvio's abortive attempt to kill Leopard Masia. The king is in his, I think, 20s there, and Silvio's a teenager. I did a lot of different things with that story. It's a little 2,000-word story. It's not super long. Raw turned it into a comic. You can still find that in my store. And I did a couple of different audio versions of it. But more significantly, in this episode, it was the first story of mine that I actually tried to sell. I had given everything away for free up to this point, all of the Prophet of Panamindorah, all of the first 2 books of Cowry Catchers, and would go on to do the rest of the Cowry Catchers series for free. But I had this side story, and I tried selling it, and this was a really big step at that time. It was really scary. There was a strong sense in the circles in which I ran that art should be free and that you had no business asking money for it. That the minute you put up any kind of a paywall, you were excluding people, and all of your thoughts should run towards the people that might not be able to afford $1 or whatever, and you could ask for donations, but you could never charge anything. And there were people that felt really strongly about this. And there was also just not infrastructure in place that would easily allow you to, take the kind of small payments that you would need to take for things like ebooks and short stories. And also delivery for audio files was also very challenging because the files, for that point in time, the files were huge. Now, as infrastructure has progressed, they don't seem so large. But at that time, audio files were just absolutely enormous compared to ebook files or JPEGs or anything else that you might want to sell. They were just very large. So that was a delivery problem. It was a fulfillment problem if you were trying to sell an entire audiobook. All of these problems have been solved since. I can now sell audiobooks, certainly sell ebooks and short stories. But this was a frame of mind I needed to leave behind. Because I really was not sure at that time. Like, I knew that people would listen to my stuff for free and get excited about it every week. But there was a little voice in my head that whispered, it's not worth paying money for. Like, nobody is going to pay money for this. And it's also hard to move an audience who is accustomed to getting something for free to paying anything for it. There's often a lot of resistance when you do that. And a lot of that is psychological. Like, people have put you in a category in their head of stuff that's supposed to be free. And even though they would have no difficulty affording paying for it, they get really mad when they have to pay for something. So it's something you kind of have to ease people into. And it was an eye-opener to see that people would pay money for that story. And I had sold some stories to magazines, stuff like that. But again, that was not the reader paying me for it. That was a magazine that needed content. I don't know, I sold like half a dozen stories to magazines. But, these were places that needed content, and the person paying me was the editor. Nobody was saying we're paying for this because we want to read it. That proof was not in front of me. So this was really important, kind of crossroads. I didn't like the donation model at all. I know some people love it, but I didn't like it then, and I still don't like it now. One reason is you mostly just don't get paid. Like, if you could see behind the scenes to what people were actually getting paid, it was, a pittance of what they could have reasonably charged. But more importantly, I just feel like it's kind of a bait and switch. Like, if I give you something for free, it's free. Like, I'm not trying to guilt trip you. I saw a lot of things back then where people would be like, well, it's free, but just, give me whatever you think I deserve for it. Or like, give whatever you can, or give whatever you think is appropriate. Pay me whatever you think is appropriate, including $0. So that to me just feels like kind of a guilt trip. And also then, I as a reader then had no idea what the author actually felt was appropriate for their work. Just tell me what it is that you think this should cost, and I will pay it. But don't tell me it's $0 or $100, whichever I think is appropriate. That just feels like a guilt trip to me. But it didn't to other people. That's probably a me problem. There were people who liked this model, but most people were not getting paid very much for the mammoth amount of time they were putting into these productions. And, for me at least, this was certainly amateur days, and I got better at doing some of this stuff. This is early work. I think if you actually proceed through my body of work, you will find that I am a better writer in later books. But I'm still proud of this. I think the outtakes are funny. It's funny to hear old friends goofing around. I think I said earlier that Walk Upon High no longer exists. I told you, past Abby lies, man. Don't believe a word she says. She lies. Yeah, Walk Upon High no longer exists, but the Scarlet Albatross, Jaeger Thunder, and the Cormorant all exist. Those were books I did not know I was going to write at this time. I said something in here about a story that I was thinking about writing about a Zed and an Ocelon. I have no idea what I was talking about. I'm really curious now what I meant by that. I wonder if that could have been Anaru and Marley, but I don't think they existed yet. If they did, it was in a very early form, and I don't think they existed yet. I have no idea what Past Abby is talking about when she mentions that story, but I was spitballing here an idea that I executed several years later. It was not immediate. So I talk in here about maybe writing some short stories based on prompts or based on reader polls, something like that. And then I mentioned having done this a little bit for Prophet. I forgot that I wrote some of the Prophet of Panamindorah short stories based on reader prompts or votes. But I did. So there's a collection of short stories related to the Prophet of Panamindorah that are quite obscure. They do have one great little gay romance story in there that doesn't get a whole lot of attention because it's connected to one of my least read series, which is Prophet of Panamindorah. But anyway, if that is interesting to you and you somehow did not read Crossroads, you should pick it up. It has a really pretty cover these days. Anyway, I was tossing that idea around here, and then I want to say 4 or 5 years later, I actually executed this idea. I had a Patreon by then, so Patreon existed. And I believe this would have been in 2016-17. So this podcast was in November of 2010. So this was probably like 5 years down the road. But I wrote a short story a month and let the audience vote on the character. And as I said in this podcast that you just listened to, I didn't let people tell me what to write exactly because that was just too limiting. But they could vote on a character and I would do a short story about them. Usually backstory, occasionally something that happened off screen in some of the novels. Most of these stories were about Cowry catchers or Pirates of Weathervane characters, because by then I already had Scarlet Albatross published, and I think I was writing Jaeger Thunder. Anyway, I was proud of myself because I kept this up for a year at least. It might have been a year and a half. I think I turned it on and off a few times towards the end, but I kept it up for at least, it was more than a year, and I was also writing other novels, but I was writing a short story that the audience voted on every single month. And after a while, we kind of ran out of all the major characters from this series. Those were supposed to be completely supplemental short stories, and some of them are. Some of them you really don't have to read to understand the novels. I think that all of them add something to the novels, but you don't have to read all of them. Some of them, though, became foundational. Some of them became material that you really don't have the full picture of the novels if you don't read them. And originally I was releasing those stories in collections, and the short stories were a separate series called something like Short Stories from Weathervane or something. I can't remember. Maybe it was Short Stories from Panamindorah. Yeah, no, I tucked them all in Short Stories from Panamindorah. Anyway, this ended up very confusing because you needed to read them in between the novels, but they weren't in the same numbered series as the novels. Anyway, this was just a mistake because I wrote the series over a decade, and that was one of the elements I fixed when I did the reorganization. So those stories are now at the end of each novel in what I think is a reasonable place, a reasonable order for them to fall in. Like I said, many of them are backstories for the characters, but I put them in at a point when I think you would most benefit knowing the information in them. So you will hear all those short stories, but they were written kind of as I describe in this episode from 5 years earlier, letting the audience vote on the characters. And I still think it would be kind of a fun way to advertise these books if I commissioned different artists to do comics of specific short stories, because many of them are introductory level stories. I think that would be fun. I haven't had enough time lately to devote to something like that, and it's easy to get in over your head with artwork very quickly, as I found out with some of the illustration stuff. But I still think that would be a cool idea, and it would be limited to just that short story. So Ra and I bit off way more than we could chew when we had this ambitious idea of turning the entire series into a webcomic. That was just not something she could keep up with, and we needed more people involved, frankly, I think, and to think that idea through a little bit better. But a less ambitious idea would be to commission various artists to turn individual short stories, just that one short story, into a comic in their own style, and then use those to advertise the books, to release them for free in various places online to advertise the books. I still like that idea. At this point in time, I am writing Hunter's Universe novels, and so my brain kind of tends in that direction, and I would love to commission some comics of those stories and characters. But while I do have short stories in the Hunter's Universe, I don't have a lot that are introductory. Most of them are things that you need to have already read at least the first book. And some of the best ones have really big spoilers if you have not read the books that came before. That's Newt. Hey, buddy. I'm talking. I know. I keep talking. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. Next week we start on what was then book 3 and what is now the third part of book 1. So part 3 of the story. Next week. This is Abigail Hilton, and you have been listening to the Pirates of Wefravain saga. Join me on Patreon for early episodes, long-form interviews, forum access, personal updates, and lots of artwork, including maps and species charts. That's patreon.com/Abigail Hilton. If you want the whole story now with no interruptions and some remastering of the early books for sound quality, you can find the entire series at shop.abigailhilton.com, along with all my other novels. The audiobooks are delivered by BookFunnel. Background music was Hidden Sky by Jamie Sieber, licensed from Magnatune.net circa 2014. The Guild of the Cowry Catchers podcast is an audio adaptation of the Pirates of Wefravain saga, written and produced by Abigail Hilton. Original production copyright 2010. All rights are reserved to the author.